What is going on, world? My name is Eric D. Seals, and today I'm doing one of my favorite things of all time, is setting up an interview. I have the super talented homie Siobia here with us today, and we are gonna walk through my steps when I have a 2-camera interview setup. All right, so today we have 2 cameras, the Sony FX9, and then we have the Sony FX6 as the B cam. On the A cam, I have the 50 millimeter Sigma lens, which is a 1.4, and then a 1.4 85 millimeter Sigma lens as well. Very neutral, more so to give you a very clean look that I think can be pushed and pulled in many different directions when you get in color correction. So first, take a look at this room. It's a loft style place. This is definitely a place where you can do a sit down interview. It's got windows, it's got the brick, it's got character, it's lived in as well. So this is a great place to do an interview where you don't have to do a whole bunch of work, but we do obviously want to add to it. The big thing around when I'm building interview lighting setups is I like my light to be broken up twice. So some people do that with a book light, and some people do that with double diffusion or a double break. All right, so for this setup, I have it pre-set up for you, but essentially I'm gonna walk you through each layer because it has several layers. So the first thing I'm doing is setting up 2 600Ds. And the reason I'm doing that, one, is because this is what I own, so I adjust based on what I have. Yes, this could easily be a 1200D or 1200X. You can do the same thing, but this is what I have. I used to do this with a 600 and a 300. It all kind of depends. The next thing that I do is I put the first layer of diffusion up, okay? So this is the beginning of me double breaking my light, okay? So this is the first layer of diffusion that I'm putting in front of these lights. And essentially it's a way to soften the light. So soft light usually looks better on what I'm gonna say human beings, and hard light usually looks better on objects. So when you're doing food or you're doing product photography, not that it can't have soft light, but sometimes hard light looks great. But for people, I like to soften it up, okay? And so essentially, you can get this at Walmart. This is a shower curtain. And though I have the money to buy any type of diffusion, I learned how to diffuse light utilizing this fabric. And it's just something that I ended up getting used to, and I really like it. So I keep using it. So everything doesn't have to be expensive for you to use it, but you can get this at any store for what, $1, $2? I've had this for a long time, and I just like how light breaks up into there. I have my 8x8. This is magic cloth, which is another type of diffusion. So I just hang it on top on a boom arm. And this is what I use, and my goal is to get this as close to the subject as possible. The closer I get it to the subject, the softer and the more wrap that it's gonna have around their face, because I don't like to put another light source on their fill side. And so this is what I use, and it really does a good job of naturally wrapping around their face. You'll notice good lighting is similar to what we see in real life. So when you have a window and you light from that side, that's what people are used to. And essentially, one of the best compliments you can ever get as a DP is when someone says that doesn't look lit. When that happens, that means you're doing a good job. I get that every once in a while, but not all the time. I'm working on it. This is backwards, so I'm gonna flip this. I already know that this is too far away. I wanna get this as close as possible to her, so the light starts wrapping around. But before I start turning on lights, I wanna make an adjustment in my camera first, and let me show you that real quick. The setup right now, especially this time of day, is not bad. She's well lit, you can see her clearly. I think the thing that a lot of people need to understand is it's not about adding light, it's about controlling light or subtracting light in certain areas. And so what I'm gonna do right now is almost every single one of my interviews, I have my ND filter on, and that's because I wanna bring the ambience down in the room. And the reason I wanna do that is because then it allows me to control where my pockets of light go. So if you look right now, how I have her way too dark. A lot of people think that you have to expose for the windows. Yes, you do want to expose for the windows, but the priority is always the person. So if a window is gonna be blown out, 2 things have to happen. Number 1 has to be intentional, and number 2, the person's skin needs to be exposed correctly. So as long as that's happening, I think windows blowing out is totally okay. And when you try to save the image for the window, sometimes you mess it up because then the person's over or underexposed. But essentially, as I'm looking at false color, the right side of her face is at like 25 IRE, and that's not where we need it right now. We need to get her at least to 50. So I'm gonna move this. We want half of her face to be just under 50. So you see it's pink and green. Like, we just want the right side of her face because we're using this window right here as her key source, as her motivating light. And so if this is her motivating light, then this side of her face needs to be lit up more than this side. Now it's throwing it off a little bit because we have this light on, which I'll turn off real quick. Obviously that completely changes how the image looks, but that's essentially how we would want it. We had this light on earlier because we were just adjusting for my face. But let's go ahead and throw on a light so that we can see what this looks like. So I'm gonna strike both lights. Hey, I'm turning on the lights. I didn't really tell her properly, and I hope she doesn't beat me up. Are we cool? Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate it, my bad. So now that we got the light on, you can clearly see that the right side of her, or camera left in the framing that you're seeing right now, is a lot brighter, which is great, but we wanna control that because that's way too much. I wanna see how close I can get the diffusion without us seeing it in frame, because the closer I can get it, the better. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this as close as possible to her, and I'm looking at the image as well. And that's why it's important that you frame up first so you can see that's as close as I can get without being in frame, which is great. The next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to readjust this a little bit because this is breaking up my first light. And then I'm gonna get both of these sources just a little bit closer. So right now, I'm at 1/4 ND, but now I just bring it up a little bit and you can naturally see how great it's starting to look. The right side of her face, which is the key side, is the one that I'm focusing on. And essentially, I'm looking at my taste as far as how I feel about it. And I'm looking at false color to determine where I want to land. I'm gonna show you the image in a second, but you'll see now it's splitting her face, where this side of her face, her key side, is at just about 58, probably 45 IRE. The other side is probably like 15, is way too dark, right? So we're gonna fix one thing at a time. But I like how the background is sitting, and I like where her skin is sitting. Now I just have to fix the other side. The other thing that's very helpful is she's wearing a very bright shirt. And so that's why it's always important to tell your talent, bring multiple shirts. Sometimes you want a darker shirt, sometimes you want a lighter shirt, but you want options. But the yellow is bringing out the life in her. And so that's really good for us to have. So that's why it's always important to have different options, okay? If you look at the adjustment that we just made, you can see on her key side, it looks fantastic. It's well lit, it looks great. We just need to work on this other side, but I don't want to put a light over here because then that starts competing and there's too many lights. That's why I like passive sources that can lift up skin tones, right? So if you look at the false color, you'll see that this side of her, which could be just slightly too bright, but I'm not going to adjust that until I work on the fill side. So I'm going to bring in an ultra bounce, which is a 6x6. And I'm going to bring up this side. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I did before, where I'm gonna try to get it as close to her as possible. So I'm gonna get really close to you, but I'm not gonna hit you. So before, it was a little dark. It was falling off, especially since she has black hair. But once you bring the ultra bounce in, it brings up that whole side, but it's not forcing light into her face at this point. It's just lifting it up just a little bit. I like where that sits. So now adjusting B, and I always do this last, because if someone rushes in and we need to do the interview, B is a nice to have, but it's not always as mandatory. So at this point, I always set up the camera and the lighting for A. For B, I could be a little bit more creative, and honestly, people always love B more. And the reason they love B more is because anytime you film someone for the fill side, it always looks better. Instead of having their whole face lit up, just a sliver of their face is lit up, and it just looks more cinematic. So if you look at this image right now, I think one of my biggest problems when I do documentaries is I'm like, yo, go to the B shot. The B shot always looks good. And this one falls right in line with that. One thing that I like to adjust is because sometimes when you have this lighting setup, it spills out too much. And so I'm gonna put a 4x4 floppy right here, and you can kind of see how it controls the light in the background. But then surprising, I'm gonna add a light to the background with this 300D real quick. So I'm gonna add one more light, and that's a light to just bring up the overall background. We have the windows, we have the light spill, but this allows me to control it so I can make sure it's exactly what I want. So I would usually control this on my app so I can see, but I have a good idea of where this needs to live. Essentially, my blacks were just too dark, and I just need to bring up the whole room just a little bit. I don't want to turn off the lights because then it spreads it everywhere. If you remember, it's about controlling light in certain pockets. So this allows the background not to fall off, because if your darks get too dark, it gets really muddy. And what muddy means is like you just start seeing artifacts and it just starts not looking as good. All right, so now that we got that light up, let's look at our final image. So this is an example of an image that I could go with for an interview. This feels natural, this feels good, especially since this is towards the end of the day. These windows and the light has calmed down a little bit, so it's not blaring through. So I think that this looks very good. Some people ask me, when do you use a hair light? And I'm 50-50. Sometimes I don't like hair lights because I feel like they make it too broadcasting, too newsy. And it depends on the image. So with her right now, she has a lot of hair, right? But if you look at the windows, it's kind of pointing at her and separating her from the back. And so she doesn't need an additional light, because I feel like if it's glowing, that's the wrong feel. And so sometimes I add a hair light, but sometimes I don't because I feel like it's a news channel. Outside of that, the B looks pretty good. I'm gonna make a small adjustment. You don't have to move. That's where I would land on the B shot for something like this. So I think the two of those can cut very well, especially when you have the color chart and you put that together, you're really gonna be able to match these very well. And that's essentially my lighting setup when I'm doing a documentary, when I have plenty of space and plenty of time.